Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. I want to thank Adam Dorn for the last segment. In this segment, we've got Promega Art Showcase was held last night at Promega. It's the Promega Spring Art Show, and they presented pop art for Santa Fe. Let's take a look.
Hello, my name is Daniel Swadner, and I'm the exhibition curator for Promega Corporation, and welcome to everyone. Thanks for coming, and also a thanks to Stephanie and Nicole and Penny and everybody here at Promega, and to Promega and to Bill Linton. And I'm here to have a talk by a couple of good friends of mine, new friends, but I dragged these guys from Santa Fe. So I know you've all been really impressed with the art, so I'm really anxious to hear what these folks have to say. So we have Stan Natchez and Billy Shank. And so anyway, I want to introduce you first off to Stan Natchez.
My name's Stan Natchez, and I'm a painter. I'm doing contemporary art. I don't really want to pigeonhole myself and say I'm just a native artist. Right. Because sometimes I'm painting landscapes, and if I paint a landscape, is it an Indian landscape if it doesn't have a teepee? And would you ask Jimi Hendrix, or those black notes? Right. So I try to keep it open. I try to document the time in which we live. Anything that represents, the 21st century, newspaper, comic strips, phone books. Phone books and newspaper is going to be a day that they're not going to be around anymore. So we are living in history. I'm trying to use a little humor and satire to get across that Native people still exist. And we have changed under the rule of modern times, but we have continued to exist. I'm a Tatavian, and I come from a tribe that at one time they said it was Shoshone language. Now that can be disputed maybe, but the most important thing is that we're a non-federally recognized tribe, but we are state recognized. I'm very influenced by Andy Warhol, Jasper Johns, Rauschenberg, I think Jackson Pollock. I like that era of painting. I think that they opened the door for pop art for all the new artists, since I kind of feel I'm a neo-pop artist. I like building boxes. I like using found objects. We live in a time when it's a throwaway society, but it's not really throwing it away. They should call it a pile-up society. It just goes over to the mountain that no one sees in the trash. I would like to leave the residue of myself, of the paintings being spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and definitely physical on my part. I'm leaving those elements of the spiritual world and the material world, and a balance between the two.
Thank you, Stan. That was fantastic. So now we have Billy Shank to explain himself a little bit. So anyway, big round of applause for Billy Shank.
My name is Billy Shank. I'm a Western contemporary artist, and I've been doing this for 45 years professionally. Fitchburg, because of Daniel, who discovered my art while on one of his trips to Santa Fe, and he came down to my studio and invited me to come up here and do this show, and asked if it was okay if I partnered up with Stan Natchez, who's actually been around in this genre almost as long as I have, and so I thought it was a great opportunity, and I haven't ever shown my work in Wisconsin before. And I thought how lucky I was that I had a vision so young, right. And I stayed with it. Right. And just perseverance will get you much mileage. Stubbornness will work. Right. Well, this is where I was so lucky, and I go out of art. I'm there when I'm 21 years old in New York, and I was married at the time. My wife was in graphic design, so she got a job. She had a day job, and we figured out, with a loft and et cetera, we could live on $6,500 a year and not be poverty-stricken in 1970. Right. So I stayed home and painted. How lucky is that? I didn't have a day job. Last time I had a job, I was 17 years old. I had to live by my wits. Then I got lucky enough to get represented, within the first 8 or 9 of these Western paintings that I made. Mm-hmm. They gave me a show, and now I'm 24, and it sells out. I just made $13,800. That's double the national income, yearly income, right, for any guy. I was off and running. I also buy and sell other art, historic Western paintings. Okay. I sell American Indian art as well, so it's always a scramble, but I was always a risk taker. I feel comfortable with risk, and I know a lot of people don't. And then when I came to New York, I wanted to do I became the grandfather of pop Western painting, of pop Western. Right. And there was other traditional oriented Western painters, and I thought, this is tired looking, this isn't fresh. And again, that was Sergio Leone that, like, wow, I mean, he just altered the universe. And since I've read more about him, I discovered that all those guys that went to film school at their same age as I was, all acknowledged their indebtedness. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, John Milius, John Carpenter, Sam Peckinpah. I mean, this was the next generation of great filmmakers. Right. And they all talk about Sergio Leone, as well as Tarantino, the most obvious one, who's still out there, you know, doing kind of his crazy Westerns. I've done plenty of other things. I'm happy with the legacy I've got. You know, the fact that I could be a star rodeo rider, that was huge. You know, I mean, I used to, another mentor was Ben Johnson for me. Ben Johnson was a wrangler out in California, and he was first a stuntman and working for John Ford on the old Westerns in the 1940s. He took a year off in between a film in 1946 and another in 1948, and he got back and went back to California, rounded up his buddy, and they go out and win a world championship as team ropers with the Rodeo Cowboys of America, or whatever. Right. Then he comes back to Hollywood, and then he gets an Oscar in 1972, you know, for The Last Picture Show. And I thought, man, if they gave Oscars for painting, I've already got half of what he did. I got my world championship rodeoing. Now give me an Oscar for being a painter. Right. Then I've done it. I've done everything that I could have done.